Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to episode 251. Tales with TR. I'm your host, Terry Ryan Jr. It's good to be with you today. Let's get right to it. Hey, TR. I'm going to answer some questions today. Hey, TR, who's your favorite character on Cheers? This comes from Faye in Minneapolis. Yes, I am going to get to a hockey question. Hockey fans, but I'm going to spread it out. So Faye in Minneapolis must have heard me talking about the TV show Cheers, of which I'm watching straight through again right now. I just started about a month and a half ago from episode one. And my favorite character would be Fraser Crane, Dr. Fraser Crane. Of course, there was a spinoff. Fraser just came back just last year, I think. It was on for 9 or 10 years after Cheers folded, but I liked him more on the TV show Cheers. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to try not to ramble on this. Get to the next question. But if you do know what I'm talking about, even if you don't, you should check it out. It is pretty funny. That's probably an understatement. I mean, it's one of the funnier shows, sitcoms of my lifetime, for sure. My early lifetime. I found a lot of them corny. Like you look back and we have fond memories of like Full House and Growing Pains and Family Ties, but there's a huge level of cheese to it, Steve Urkel and shit like that. They're fun memories. There was, it was innocent enough. And watching it as, for me, all of these are I'm between 5 and 13, 14 years old, whatever. So Cheers, I guess his first episode was probably early 80s, but it was going off the air when I really understood it. Right, you got Sam Malone, Ted Danson, one of the most iconic characters ever. Bar owner, ex major league pitcher. He was a sport because it was an adult show, but it was a sitcom. In that, sitcoms were built for families. Really, I mean, it wasn't like it was any cursing or anything, or it was made for ages, family, but family really was more like Michael P. Keaton, Michael J. Fox back in the day. Family Ties, yeah, and Urkel and Growing Pains, like I said. Even like Saved by the Bell and Different Strokes before that. They all had a happy, quirky, usually a kid involved in some way or another. Cheers didn't have that, but a lot of dry humor. A lot of it was followed a formula. It was right in between. I found like when by the time Seinfeld came and then Arrested Development, the whole game had changed for many reasons, of which I won't get into because then I will be rambling. But Cheers, yeah. So Sam Malone, right, and he was the alpha male, used to having his way and getting to take out whatever woman he wanted. But once in a while, he'd run into a roadblock like Diane Chambers. And then what was Rebecca's last name anyway? You know who I'm talking about. Kirstie Alley. Kirstie Alley. Yeah, Shelley Long. Anyway, Frasier came on that show, and I believe he was Diane's boyfriend, love interest in season 2 or 3. And then he keeps coming back until eventually he's a main character. But I liked him in the show because he plays well off of, the typical, stereotypical bar flies. Cliff Clavin, Norm Peterson. Woody was a bartender, Woody Harrelson. You got Sam Malone, like I said, Ted Danson. So the nucleus, there's a jock, a post office officer and a insurance guy. I think Norm was. They drown their sorrows at the bar. Carla's a server. Anyway, so Frasier, being a newly minted psychiatrist or psychologist, I'm not sure, one or the other. He's a shrink, and so he and Diane is an academic who he shares his love for the arts and finer things maybe. And they sound really uppity, although, they like hanging. Diane ends up working in the bar. She doesn't really complain about it much. Frasier loves hanging out in there because they never really say it, but those are their friend. That they gravitate towards those guys and girls more so than they do their own, quote unquote academia crowd at the universities or in the masters bars, or where you know what I'm talking about. Masters bars is a bad way to put it, but a few times in the show they're hanging out at Harvard pubs that for grad students and whatever, and it comes up, and yet they get along better with Sam Malone, who's got no education and was a major league pitcher. So I find Frasier often either misdiagnosing or diagnosing or even feeling the need to pipe in with their problems when he's probably the one in need of the most help, is probably for me his best role, being Kelsey Grammer. I think Frazier, he's surrounded by people of that same ilk, right? I mean, his dad's a little bit off the wall, but his brother Niles is pretty much the same, and they hang out with a crowd often that's more geared towards I would think education, and not just education. I don't consider education all in, but I think when I say education, I don't always mean degree. I mean anything that you're schooled on, including life, really, if you travel a lot. But you know what I mean. So I find that place for the of all the Kelsey Grammer characters, and his whole demeanor is, he gives off a vibe of a professor or a shrink without even trying. So I think it was great casting as well. Okay, ATR will get the MVP in the NHL this year, and that comes from Johnny Pills in Montana. Well, Johnny Pills, Johnny Pills. I wonder what you look like. I bet you have at least 10 tattoos and a motorbike out in the garage. Johnny Pills. Yeah, what would you? I don't mean to offend you by that. That'd be a good school project if you were a teacher. Draw me a picture class of Johnny Pills. I don't necessarily think it's someone that's just some drug addict or something, because you wouldn't announce it as a handle. Johnny Pills. Maybe it just means, I don't know, you got big balls. Or maybe you used to be sling some dope in high school. Johnny Pills. Or it's like John Pildegrew, or that's your name, Johnny. So they just say Johnny Pills. Maybe it's Johnny Wills and they call you Johnny Pills because you take fucking MDMA once in a while. Drop it, go watch The Prodigy, get all fucked up, try to act normal at work on Monday. Anyway, yeah, we're getting too far into it. Johnny Pills in Montana will get the MVP. I'm glad you're interested, being from Montana and no NHL teams. Good to know our game is growing. I think Leon Draisaitl. I say, why do I think that? Because the Oilers doing well. You could have predicted that, and that they did lose in Game 7, Stanley Cup final last year. A lot of people had him pegged to be number one. But McDavid is not having a fantastic year for McDavid standards, and he missed some time. Draisaitl last night scored not just his sixth game winner. I think he's got 8 game winners this year, or 9. But that was his 6th overtime goal this year. His 6th overtime goal, setting an NHL record. But point being, he's just behind McKinnon in the scoring. He's leading the goal scoring. He's got 51. Put it in perspective, McDavid has 26. 26, Draisaitl, another year. This is 3rd or 4th in a row. He's got 51 already. How many games left? 8 or 9. He has a chance for 60. I'll never rule it out. But he's probably get 55, 56 goals. I think what he does for the team, and this is crunch time. So, by the way, this final half dozen to dozen games, this is so close. I think it's Draisaitl, Hellebuck, and McKinnon, okay? And it's so close that I really do think it'll come down to how those teams do going in. Winnipeg, would they have been Winnipeg all year without Hellebuck? Probably not, because his stats are off the charts. McKinnon, his stats are fucking unbelievable too, and some crazy stuff. He's just trucking. He's leading the NHL in scoring again. But Draisaitl, I think maybe recency bias, but he really does seem to be really coming up big in when he needs to. And Edmonton are still doing well. They've tailed off a little bit lately, but he's almost 20 points ahead of McDavid. You got Connor McDavid, the best player in the world in a lot of people's eyes. And this has happened a couple of times. There was another time McDavid missed half the year and Draisaitl stepped in. And I don't know, but he won the scoring or got the MVP. You can look that up. One or the other. He really does step up, man. And he's very, 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 very important to his team, arguably as much as the other guys. And I just think for what he's giving and how many game winners and how many times he's factored in. And, where would the other team? You know what? Fuck. I'm saying that, and I'm a victim of it too, being recency bias. Now, here's what I think, though. You know who my second pick would be? And no offense to Hellebuck or McKinnon, really none, because it's all subjective. And you could pick 5. You could put Kucherov in there, and you could give any argument for any of them. So I don't know. Maybe number 2 would be harsh, but I could make an argument for you for Zach Werenski, who's playing on Columbus, and leading their fucking team in scoring by like almost 10 points too. Why didn't I just say 8 as it is? Why did I say almost 10? Why didn't I say 8? Anyway, that's fucking wild. More than a point per game now. 70 games played. He's got 72 points. Fucking way out in scoring. And Columbus. So if Columbus make the playoffs, how could you not make just the same argument for Werenski as you can for the other guys? That's why it's real tough, man. It's really fucking tough. Points is pretty obvious, right? Either you shoot it in the net or it hits you or whatever, you get the goal. Or in some measure, it hits your stick within 2 taps and the puck goes in, meaning that there's a second assist. You could shoot it off my back, it go to somebody, they pass it to someone and they score and I get a second assist. There's no arguing that. Not an assist in most people's thought of it, but it's cut and dry. There, you pass that one. Okay, I'll give you that. But this one hit your skate, and that's still an assist, right? But how do I tell you who the fuck is the MVP? I don't know. I got to use factors that are similar for each player and subjective to the person that's making the vote. And I really don't know. I could make an argument for at least the top 4. I think Draisaitl, Hellebuck, McKinnon, or Werenski, I could make the same argument. Now, and I don't see Werenski rated anywhere, but someone please bring the fucking guy up. Now, that being said, I haven't heard a whole lot of talk about it yet. But when for betting purposes, I always go like, Hart Trophy odds, and I never see Werenski's name. Now, there could be reporters talking about it. I don't know. I listen to certain shows, and I have heard his name at some point. I don't really recall, not much. Anyway, okay. By the way, guys, I'm in Sudbury right now, as most of you know, and I'm thinking about getting a motorcycle. That's what I'm thinking about doing. Dolo got one when he drives responsibly. I don't want to crotch rocket. I don't. This isn't a question, by the way. I'm just saying this. So I don't want to crotch rocket, and I need a starter kind of bike, but the opposite. I don't know what you fucking call them, a cruiser style looking bike, or of the sort. Not crotch rocket. More of the like Harley kind of ilk. You know what I mean? I don't even know much about bikes. Only a few times driven like the off-road dirt bike kind of thing. But I'm going to go home and take the course, learn and all that. But I'm going to be in Toronto and Montreal a lot over the next little bit. So if I find a much better deal up here than in Newfoundland, and it's often the case, nothing against the dealers at home, but it's we're an island and there's only so many options, and you got to pay to get it over there one way or the other. Of course, we have bikes already on the island, but same thing. They've gone through that process. So it's just that they're a little slightly more expensive. You might be able to get a deal. But if I could find one anywhere east of Toronto or Montreal, it would only be a nice little trip to drive it home. Again, I'm talking speed limit. Speed limit. I promised my daughter too if I ever got one. I just like I got an electric bike anyway that I drive like a madman with no helmet, fucking in and out of wherever. Not that that really matters, but I mean, I'm on that. I may as well take a bike course, go through the safety protocol, all of that, have a helmet on, and respect the road. There's other drivers and all that, and I really will. I mean, you knock on wood, anything can happen in a car or a bike or walking or running or on a motorbike, whatever. But I plan to drive this extremely safe. I just want that. I've always wanted a motorbike, and I think now's the time. And anyway, so if you know someone that might have something used or whatever, maybe we can work out a deal. Who knows? Maybe we can do something. We can do something. Who knows? What? Hey, TR. Keith B says, what do you think of analytics in sports? Ugh, that's a big one, Keith. God. I mean, guys, analytics is just information. Analytics have always been in sports. Always. Just think about any measure of anything if you're a fan. I mean, if you're a fan in the 1920s going to watch Babe Ruth play, I use baseball. It's the easiest, I think, to track of the analytics because, there's a batter. He gets up, there's a strike or a ball, and he hits it somewhere, gets to a base. It's just every pitch. There's something to bank, right? And the game flows, but it's static. Not as static as some other sports, but play, boom, pitch, pitch, foul, pitch, ball, pitch, strike, pitch, balls in play, boom, 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 back to one, right? So there's all kinds of ways to analytically break it down. So let's just say it's the 1920s, and it's the same in every fucking sport. I don't know why. I just picked baseball. I think it was the first. Well, the movie Moneyball was the first to really shed light into analytics in sports, and the Oakland A's of the era, and Billy Bean, is it his name? Often get the credit, and his sidekick there, I can't remember. Check out the movie. It's not a bad movie. Long live the Oakland A's. Or rest in peace, because now they're gone, so the movie's lost its pop. But, their theory made sense. And basically, it's when analytics really came into sports because they hired people that had never even seen baseball before. They were just going on numbers and pitch counts and hits at certain times, misses at certain times. You can break it down. It's just information. So, with computers and more information and better ways to store it, their bigger and bigger databases led to more and more results. And eventually people started paying more attention to the results than anything else. Until now you get to a point that each team in major sports that I know of has an analytic department, not just one person. And most of them, or not in every case, but a lot of them in a lot of cases have never even seen the sport that they're analyzing. Now, there is something to that because numbers do make sense sometimes in the right context. When you were, like I said, if you were watching Babe Ruth back in the day, and if you've been to a baseball game, there's lots of people that have the score, a scorecard there, right? If he's pitching or he's hitting, he did both. You got your pen and paper and there, strike, and you can start to do it, right? Fans, as they do, baseball fans do this in my experience more than anywhere, but they go and they track the game, whether with a computer or with a pen. Lots of people still do it, pen and notepad, right? And then you'll start to see, okay, fourth game in, okay, Ruth likes to throw a curveball to lead off each batter the second time around. I've noticed that. The odds are. Okay, now we start going, okay, Ruth swings at the first pitch every time he gets up, and it's a strike after the first at bat of the game. Then it starts to get like, okay, Tuesdays probably, but like a night game, say. Okay, Babe Ruth's hitting 380 at night, 297 during the day. So what's the difference there, right? Now start looking for it. So that was going on forever. And like, if you look at baseball numbers or, I remember being a fucking kid. I just mentioned the 80s and watching, the Oakland A's, and the outlying numbers are easy, right? Let's say it wasn't McGuire and Canseco. I think they were going for the 40-40, 40 stolen bases, 40 home runs. Let's say something as easy as that. Well, obviously, but that's analytics. And you're going to say, well, obviously, you're going to keep track of the steals and the home runs. Yeah, but it's still analytics. One level deeper than that is when did they get those hits? And when were they stealing? Okay, you got me 40 steals. Now, when were you leaping? When were you taking that leap? Were right-handers on the mound or left-handers? Were right? Were you going on the first pitch or the fifth pitch? And now you start to look. Now you can break it down, and usually when it started, there was as many people using it for the guys that they were picking on their own team as there were other teams. They don't really get into that huge amount in Moneyball. But I'd be looking at the same thing if I'm looking at your team. Okay, wait, we're playing against Don Mattingly. It's 1980 fucking 8. You're playing against the Yankees. Playing against Don Mattingly. Okay, his tendencies are this, right? So let's pitch him inside, too high and fast, and then an off-speed pitch, then a curveball low and outside, right? So now you're starting to see the analytics. So they were always there. It just got a lot deeper in a lot of sports now, like to the point that there's rare no hitters, which used to be something that the fans came to see, are something of an irregular. Well, they were always irregular, but they're not gone completely, but almost. And it used to be that if you've got a pitcher pitching for a no hitter in the sixth or seventh, you'd never ever take him out. It would be, oh God, it'd be just the worst sin to your fans. What are you showing them? What to your player that you're taking him out and he could get a no hitter? And there's been only so many in each franchise, and let alone a perfect game. right? A few years ago, a guy was pitching a perfect game in the seventh. You might laugh, seventh, yeah, but there's only two more fucking innings, right? Like 6 outs. Even if they're lucky, you got them. You got a perfect fucking game to take you out. And now it's getting to the points that pitchers expect it. So there's a whole lot going on there. Now, so what do I think of analytics in sports? I think that they should be there. There's you got to judge your players somehow. And again, before I even with my era, analytics were there, but I remember they didn't even take hits. I wish they did. I wasn't a great hitter, but I finished a lot of them, right? And it would have been something that helped me out a little bit. Block shots wouldn't have helped me. People, the way I played, I think people would have expected me. I tipped them. I did, but if I had to block them, it depended what time of the game. Depend what time of the game, but I didn't block as many shots as you would think I did. So that would probably get my ass in gear to block more. Things like that, right? It's information that you can use. But when you start going into like Fifth Tuesday sorry, the second Tuesday of each month on a night game, when they're wearing their off jerseys and shit, like that doesn't mean anything. That's fluke. But and sometimes there is something to taking pitchers out, like I just mentioned. There is something to that. Like the analytics say it because the analytics say the third time around that a lineup's going to see the arm, right, in baseball, right? There's three batters, or sorry, 3 outs an inning. So you're going to see 3, 4, 5 batters, six, whatever, however successful you are. But as that there's nine batters on each side. So if you're pitching and you go once around the order, twice around the order, now someone heavy in analytics would say that third time they've already seen this pitcher. They've seen numerous pitchers, each batter, and it's time to take them out because they've seen them already, and they're just that much more likely to get a hit, and the guy's arm is getting more tired. Now, someone like Nolan Ryan would use that to his advantage. And you take that human element out, then you're not going to see any more Nolan Ryans. That's my thing. Okay, I'm getting tired now. Yeah, you've seen me. Now I'm going to pitch one up by your fucking chin. And I might even hit someone in the ear and still get a no-hitter, but I'll have a walk. But I'm going to figure it fucking out. Now he has 9. He has the most no hitters ever. You know what I mean? And he's going to figure it out. And you know what? If they've seen me pitch, and they think I'm going to go analytically, I'm going to fuck them up. I'll throw a knuckleball if I got to, right? And that's where great athletes are become even greater if you give them that opportunity. And sometimes it's going to fuck up. But if I'm a fan, I'm not only paying to see you win the fucking championship at the end of the year. I'm paying for other things too. Last year, I was glad the Leafs let Austin Matthews go for 70 goals, right? Because they didn't win the cup again. And it's not always about the cup. It should be. And of course, that's the number one thing. But if I'm a fan and I'm paying money, yeah, I'd like to see my favorite players do what they can. And if that means that I've got a player that might get 70 fucking goals for the first time in decades, I want you as a team, a management and coach and organization to give him the chance to do it because I'm a fan and I want to see my player do it. I want bragging rights for that. Well, same shit. I want to win the World Series, but holy fuck, I want to see Kershaw get a fucking no-hitter. I want to see Kershaw, or I want to see Kevin Gausman or whoever get a perfect game. They're going for it, right? But you're seeing that less and less. And a lot of those games within the games, like the no hitter, the perfect game, the hitting for the cycle and shit like that, a lot of that's unique to baseball. There's not as many. In hockey, you got your hat trick. I remember Mario Lemieux scored 5 goals 5 different ways. He scored a shorthanded goal, a power play goal, a penalty shot goal, an even strength goal, and a shorthanded goal. But I didn't know it watching, right? Because that's unheard of in hockey. I don't know anybody else that ever did that, ever. He must have, 6 or 5. Obviously, he had at least 5 goals, but that's rare enough. And to get them all. But I remember I was a kid, man, and my buddies and I were watching the game, but we still didn't realize that. I remember we were down playing like hockey, and it was up on in the background, and we're like, "Oh, Lemieux scored," and he scored again. But you would never. Whereas in baseball, you would have an idea that someone's going for a no hitter or someone's going to hit for the cycle. It's probably similar to that. 4 hits 4 different ways. So baseball, I guess, is more connected to those mini, like I said, games within a game. So if I'm a fan, I want to see it. I'm sorry, I want to see it. Especially this year. Let's say the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays had a lot more disappointing of a year last year than people would have liked. But because of all that, you can always count on someone possibly hitting for the cycle or hitting a grand slam. Or you could be in last place, but you get three guys on base, you might see a grand slam. And then you might see someone, the rare time, get two grand slams in one game, right? But if I'm a paid fan, that shit eases the pain of not winning the World Series, right? Maybe Vladdy Guerrero is going to get 9 RBIs in one game and set the record. But if you take him out in the seventh inning because you're resting him, that's not going to happen, right? That's all I mean. You're asking me about analytics. I think they're extremely useful. And I'd be lying if I said to you that if I was in management in any sport that I can think of now off the top of my head, that I wouldn't be using them. But I definitely would not be using them to the point they are, especially me being Canadian. And I think that's what separates us Canadians from a lot of the rest of the pack, although the rest of the pack is not only catching up, but they're playing Canadian hockey. And I'm proud of that. I love the game that I grew up playing in the province and country where I played it. I have nothing against the other people that learned in other ways. But when people say, oh, Canada, when we lose on an international level, like the World Juniors, or say if we had lost to the US, I don't really look at it like that. I mean, it's great that we won. But I'm looking at the rest of the world playing like us. Those three fights that started the game, that I know it was the US, and of course, but break back. Matthew Brady Kachuk's dad is Keith Kachuk, and he played tough for an American. I remember that was kind of new for them to play like that in '96 when they got in all those fights, because I know they played that a few times during this new edition of that. But it was, like the Americans, like Miracle on Ice, they were never known for having a tough team or anything. That was 1980. And, as they came through, they got tough. They, I think, evolved into the Canadian kind of game as much as we did theirs, right? Skill came into it, I think, from Europe and the United States. It's dumb. We always had skill. I mean, come on, we got the best players of all time. But skill was stressed from Europeans coming over and being so skilled and working on it so much and little to no hitting or fighting that it was stressed. But now I think it's a healthy mix. Of course, Canadian players are more skilled than they've ever been, but the rest of the world is definitely catching up when it comes to passion and roughness and all that. So to get back to it, for me, I don't think analytically you can measure the amount of heart that a guy like Hagel on Canada, Brendan Hagel, or Colton Parayko, or Sammy Bennett, the three that fought there off the start of the game. Not that it's all about fighting, but those things helped Canada win. I don't care what anybody says. If you watched all of it, it's just we're not going to back down. We're often going to be in the offensive. We're going to play the game. Don't fucking get in our face, though, because we're not going to back away. And I think that's emblematic of many different facets of life. Hockey just lets us let it out. Hockey's a real Canadian game that way. Not that just that we invented it, but it's a very you fight, you got respect. You when the fight's over, you good fight, you move on. It's a game of skill. It's also a game of toughness. Yeah, okay, you're skilled, but I'm also might hit you, and it's very Canadian. We're polite, but we're tough, right? We're mannerly, but we like our fucking beers cold, right? You know what I mean? We like a fucking good shed party, right? Our hockey players probably like to mix it up more than the other countries. I'm proud of that, so I see it. I see the game evolving into the game that I grew up loving, as opposed to the game that I watched overseas that I didn't understand, being so big, the surface, and not much hitting and no fighting, and I no, I don't think there should be fights every fucking whistle. Like there's been times that it's been absolutely chaotic, but everything evolves, and I think we're in a good spot. There is still a need for the fight. I do believe that, and I don't think I'm being old school saying it. I think it's healthy. I think there still is the odd Donnybrook when the time's right, and the Four Nations Cup kind of, for me, solidifies my point. If you didn't like that, you probably didn't grow up playing the hockey I did. And then the other thing is a lot of people piped in, like a lot of people, because that was on display. And if you read social media, you might see a lot of people were for it, but a lot really were against it. And I really will say this to people. And I've had kids and come into hockey schools, or I've seen parents at pro hockey games, and they'll be sitting next to me, and I mean this, and I'm trying to be, and they'll go, but this and that, but Bobby's this, and they're complaining, or their kids, whoever, and they're saying, but it's so scary. I don't know, but it's injured. They might get injured. I'm going, well, don't put him in it or her. It's fine. Just as fucking dangerous for the girls. I mean, you're going fast because there's not much fighting, and there is now. I saw one the other night. Those girls, it's the same thing. You got a weapon in your hand, man. You can't go out of bounds. There's all kinds of injuries. Talk to any of the girls that play pro hockey, and they have injuries just like we do. A lot of them have career enders. Arthritis fucking kicks in, right? They're training as hard as we do. So, it's just not an easy sport to play. That's it. It's just not. It's just not. That's it. You might have an injury. You might have a real, real bad injury. And you might have a career-ending injury. You might have an injury that's going to fuck you up for life. Not always a debilitating one, but sometimes. I don't know any hockey player that played beyond midget that doesn't have something, right? Could be a tweak in your pinky finger. Could be, a pulled groin that tightens up to this day. Could be something in your knees, your joints, your elbows, your shoulders. Could be a little tiny thing. Could be a lot of things. But it's usually something if you just choose to put on your gear and go out and play the sport that we play. Just play it. Let alone get involved in whatever. Hooking and holding and hitting and fighting or whatever the fuck it is. So there's always going to be a risk. And if you don't want that, I really mean it. People say tiddlywinks. That's the saying. Well, if you don't like it, play tiddlywinks. Well, I guess. Or bowling or whatever. You could say baseball. Yeah, you might get a fastball in the fucking temple. Say football. Yeah. Hits can go the wrong way there. Basketball. Go up for a layup, come down, land on a wet spot on the court, go back, crack your fucking neck. I don't know. Hockey's probably more risky than the other ones because of your skates and, like I said, the weapon in your hand and the hits and the fights and all that. But that's it. Don't put your kid in. That's all I say. Don't put them in. Now, if you do put them in, welcome to fucking my playground. I love the sport. I think it can teach a lot. You know the risks going in, don't you? If you're downtown St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador this weekend or any weekend and you want to check out George Street, why would you not stop into Trinity Pub, TJ's Pub, the Rob Roy Confusion, the Martini Bar, Greensleeves, of course, the Bull and Barrel. If you're going to go for a bite to eat, why don't you check out the Loose Tie, Blue on Water, and Wedgwood Cafe, who also do catering. If you want to work out, you're in St. John's, Newfoundland. Go to Rope Walk Lane. Ryan Power at Power Conditioning. Strength and balance for the body and mind. Mr. Lube, 2 locations in St. John's. Torbay Road and Kenmount Road. Live, laugh, lube. True Hockey. Take what's yours. Crown Cabinets. You can't beat them. And, of course, Muggsy Jeans. I loves me Muggsy Jeans. Back in just a couple of days with more Tales with TR. Thanks for listening.